from the previous talks on wisdom. Questions? No, I mean, Rinpoche spoke last week in Oregon on wisdom versus knowledge, so just letting them know people online have asked questions. What is wisdom really? And if we cultivate it and we die, in the next life, does any of it come back, or is it all just... Well, $10. Okay. Yeah, something like this.
Yan.
I turn this on. Yes.
Okay, so
I'll get to it after. It's tax and everything, so let me figure it out.
okay, so emptiness is very well known words among the Buddhists. For other people, the emptiness means let somebody have no idea of Buddha's teachings. What does emptiness means? Can you tell me? Anybody? No habit, never heard any Buddha's teachings, Buddha philosophy, nothing. For them, emptiness means what?
Void, nothing there.
Yeah, nothing there. Means that. So don't forget that one. That's very important. Because sometimes we have particular meanings and then we forgot the fundamental meaning. Okay? We are kind of like brainwashed, and then we forgot the fundamental meaning. So, what you have to think of this? Why so important on the Buddha's teachings, emptiness? Why Buddha so much emphasize emptiness? You know, this Heart Sutra is the most short version. But the long version, Yimche Parshina Paramita, 13 books in Tibetan. The medium one, Gyatso, 800,000 verses. Basically, it's 2 books or 1 book that thick. What is inside? Mostly repeated. Not repeated exactly, but many ways. Oh, this empty, this empty, this empty. So similar in this Heart Sutra say, no eyes, no air, no air, no. So somewhere you could think, why have to, if you know one is empty, then everything's empty should be. So why have to repeat everything? The reason, one, not everybody is so intelligent. That's why you have to say one by one. Just remember that. Second, everybody has such strong habit. Something is not inherently exist, but we think is. Not we only think, but we feel it. We feel it. So that's why anything you have a long habit, you have to work hard to go rebuild that rebellion of that habit. Just remember that. That's one part. The other part, self-empty, Ram means self, Tong means empty, so literally empty itself or self-empty. So that's also, don't forget that fundamental meaning. So we say empty itself. What it means for normal people, never heard Buddhism, for them, again, what is the meaning? If we say empty itself, they usually, of course, they don't use that word. Do that word ever use? But they get some meaning. They can imagine what meaning, right? Huh? Somebody, we're not talking Buddhism, we're not talking Buddhist philosophy, and we just have conversation, say something empty itself. What contact you can use that? Can you make up something?
Self. I don't exist. Self doesn't exist.
No. You're talking about the philosophy level. I'm not talking about philosophy level. Normal conversation. Can you use this?
No soul.
Huh?
No soul.
Maybe you can say, please empty my cup. Can you say that?
Yes.
We don't say empty of self.
Yeah, you can't say
We
you
don't
empty
say,
yourself.
we say empty cup,
We're full of
empty
ourselves.
wallet,
Yes.
empty house.
Yeah.
We say empty self.
Yes. Because we don't say empty itself, because normal conversations, you don't have to be incredibly precise as a philosophy, you know. When you come to the philosophy, you come to the academic, you have to be more precise than any other normal conversation. You know, normal conversation, you can't use an academic. You understand? Especially we establish in the view. That's why I said here, I wrote Janton in Tibetan. I don't want to write in English because I cannot precise like that way. Because I have no enough language, you know. When I talking to you, I just try, and then you can, you know, because we're not arguing, we should try to, communicating. So that's why even I mistake, it's not big deal, you know, because we all kind of have willingness to try to understand. That's why it's. But when you debating, you know. When you debate, then difficult. Because the other one, you have no willing to agree with you. Because you want to challenge, that's why, you know. So when we say empty my cup, or empty the house, clean the house. What about if we say empty itself? Yeah, we don't need to really use that, isn't it? But if somebody use it, just say, so clean my cup. If we say this, then this person say, what I have to do? And say, empty itself. They get it or not? Empty itself. It means the cup, right?
I think the closest is mentally, when people get mentally ill and feel like they lost their self. That probably is the closest. They feel empty inside and like they've lost themselves.
Yeah.
And a little mentally ill. It's probably the closest.
Yeah. That's why it's a little bit difficult for everybody to understand emptiness, because we don't have habit. We don't have habit, you know. That's why we say empty cup or something else. That's what I'm saying before we talking about the base. When we say empty my cup, which means the base is cup. What you going to empty, what basis? The base is a cup. So that's why easy to understand. So that's why chanting should be easy to understand, because when we say, oh, Buddha nature is not empty itself, is empty of other, which means other-emptiness, which means we say, oh, cup is there, but not inside nothing. You're not saying cup is absent. You're not saying this. Basically, you're saying, oh, cup is there, but nothing inside. Yes, Buddha nature is there, but no any other things we imagine or we think, yes, all of them not there. It's kind of simple. One way it's very simple. The only not simple because we have no habit. That's all. So think about that. So in that way you can see, oh, Rastro means always half of the way. Because you negating, we need negating things because something not truly exists, but we have habit of grasping and clinging on. This emptying, they say no. So let's say we have 15 empty rooms there. 15, or let's say 800, let's say 800 empty rooms there, and people have concept, all of them full of stuff. Then we say, oh no, this is empty. Oh no, this is empty. Empty room, empty. Or we can say empty room, empty cup, empty bowl, empty box, empty. We can say all of them empty. Because people have habit inside, have many things. Treasure, one of the house is completely gold, one is the diamond, one is the expensive things, and people have this kind of concept. They believe that, and then somebody say, no, empty, it's all empty. But they're not saying the room's not there. They're just saying empty inside, these things. You think, yes, all sentient beings think they're always there, and that they say no. Not saying Buddha nature is not there, no. So that's why Ramstomba is on the halfway. You're not talking about you're not talking about the room is there or not. Only talking about there's no treasure, there's no people, there's no gold, there's no diamond. We're talking about that. So that's why you can say Ramstomba is on the halfway. But now, what tools make you understand is not there. So only two ways. One, intellectually, logically, no make sense. And then other one, you meditate and experience is not there. That's the best. The intellect one is only limited. But nowadays, can we use something else? Science experiment and many things we can try to use. You can use as a tool to understand the emptiness. You can do that. So the 5 logic systems I talked about yesterday, that intellectual level, that traditional level. So when can read that one for you just quickly, and then he can tell the page where, did you bought? Yes. And so then you know where to read. May not the perfect way to understand for you the language and twist and everything, but at least you know where is that. Can you have any better logic than this traditional logic? Yeah, try. Read. You read.
Oh, okay.
You need microphone?
Yeah, sure. Like the
Page number, you tell them. So in the future they know. What chapter? And
so this is in the second book of the Sacred Truth, under your Sacred Truth, Buddha Nature, and in let's see.
Chapter of the wisdom, yeah?
Yeah, the chapter of developing the Zen view. Yeah, sorry.
What page?
So the Zen view, I think, is on page 321. 321. Yeah, chapter 12. But the section that I think Rinpoche referred to is the 5 reasoning of developing the wisdom of emptiness. And there's
Page number.
Yeah, the page number 349. So the first reasoning, this is according to Nagarjuna. The first reason is a reason based on nature. The second is a reason based on causes. The third is a reasoning based on existence. The fourth is reasoning based on everything. And the fifth one is reasoning based on interdependence.
No, you can read, continue. Yeah.
Interdependence.
Yeah, you read, continue.
Okay. So you want me to go in?
Yes,
quickly?
go through.
Okay, so the reasoning based on nature. So the first reason, the argument is based on the neither one nor many reasoning. So one of the famous one that they say that you cannot have what is the famous one in.
You just read it, okay?
Want to read?
Yeah. Just read, okay?
You want me to read it?
Yeah, okay, it's probably better.
The first reasoning is known as the neither one nor many reasoning. It investigates whether or not the inherent nature of a singular object can be established. If it cannot, it stands to reason that multiple objects also cannot be established, as multiple objects consist of many singular objects. You cannot have 10 apples if you do not first have one apple. On the subject of inherent nature, Nagarjuna writes, if they are natureless, what transforms? If they were nature, how could there be transformation? In the first part of this verse, Nagarjuna identifies a wrong view held by many. Because we grasp onto the inherent existence of objects, we believe they have an enduring nature from one moment to the next. In the case of ourselves, we have a sense that the person we are today is the same person born many years earlier. And although we recognize we have undergone many changes in our lives, we still feel like the same person. Nagarjuna refutes this idea by asking the question, if nature were to exist inherently, how can it transform into anything else? The nature of any given thing is defined as the qualities which are inseparable from that phenomenon, and without them the phenomenon cannot exist. For instance, the nature of fire is heat, and so if there is no heat, there is no fire. If a nature is inherent, those qualities must always be present. But if they are always present, how can they transform? When we look closely at a phenomenon, we observe that it constantly changes. Therefore, we come to the conclusion that it must lack an inherent nature. Another way to analyze whether a singular entity can be established as existing inherently is to search for its nature within the appearance. If we use the self as our object of our analysis, we can see that the self appears to be present within the aggregates of body and mind. By investigating whether the self is the same or different from the aggregates, we come to see that it is neither. As Nagarjuna writes, if the aggregates were the self, It would have to arise and cease. If it were different from the aggregates, it would not have the characteristics of the aggregates. The first part of this verse indicates that a self that is inherently the same as the aggregates would necessarily be exactly the same. As the aggregates constantly change, the self too would constantly change, which contradicts the notion of it existing inherently. If, on the other hand, the self were inherently different from the aggregates, it would be completely different from the aggregates in every way. This means that the self would lack all of the aggregates' attributes, including its dependent nature. Such a self could never be produced by anything, and therefore could never exist, like a sky flower or the son of a barren woman. Should we keep going?
That's one.
That's one.
They're quite long, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
How long total?
3 more pages, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, read it quickly. It's okay.
Reasoning based on causes. The second reasoning, sometimes referred to as the diamond slitter's reasoning, analyzes the causes for producing an inherently existent object. If we truly believe that an object exists inherently from its own side, its cause must also be inherent in nature. In such a scenario, there are 4 possibilities. The object arises from itself, the object arises from another, the object arises from both itself and other, or there is no cause. With regard to the first option, Arjuna writes in his Root of the Middle Way, if the cause, having ceased, passed completely into the effect, then a previously arisen cause would absurdly arise again. In this verse, Arjuna points out the absurdity that would occur if an inherently existing effect were to have the same nature as an inherently existent cause. Since the definition of a cause is that it gives rise to an effect, to say the effect is the same as the cause means that the resulting effect would also be the cause. The cause would therefore be permanent and would continuously arise, which doesn't make sense as it has already arisen. Let's take the example of a cup. We know that the cup has not always existed, as it is an impermanent phenomenon that came into existence at some point in time. For it to exist inherently as a cup, it must have an inherent cause that brought it into existence. If its cause is the same as the cup, which is the effect, the mere presence of the cup would give rise to another cup. For every moment that that cup endured, it would be giving rise to a cup. But is this what happens? Is this how the cup exists? Regarding the second possibility, Arjuna states, moreover, if an effect is not related to its cause, how can it be given rise to? The cause gives rise to the effect, neither by seeing it nor by not seeing it. So if an inherent cause is inherently different from an inherent effect, the two would be totally unrelated. Such a cause would have no capacity to function as a cause because of its inability to give rise to the effect. If the cause gave rise to an effect by seeing it, there would be a moment where both the cause and the effect existed at the same time. In such a situation, there would be no need for the cause to give rise to the effect as it has already arisen. For instance, imagine a seed existing at the same time as its sprout. As the sprout is already there, how could the seed be considered a cause? It is equally absurd to think that a cause can give rise to an effect by not seeing it. This would mean that a totally unrelated cause could give rise to a totally unrelated effect. The consequence of this would be that anything could potentially give rise to anything else. For instance, darkness could give rise to brightness. Having already proven that the cause cannot inherently exist in itself or in another, the option of it being both itself and other is also impossible. We then are left with the fourth possibility, which is also logically absurd. If an effect could be experienced without a cause, there would be nothing stopping it from arising in every moment, nor would there be any reason for it to rise in the first place. As this clearly contradicts how reality manifests, it should be rejected. Reasoning based on existences. The third reasoning is known as the refutation of existence or non-existence production, and concerns the nature of results. There are two absurdities that arise when we consider a result as being either inherently existent or inherently non-existent, as Nagarjuna writes. If an effect is inherently existence, to what could a cause have given rise? If an effect is inherently non-existence, to what could a cause have given rise? Firstly, we consider that if the result is inherently existent, it would have to already exist at the same time as the cause. If this were the case, there would be no reason for the cause as the result already existed. Secondly, if a result is inherently non-existent, it would always be non-existent, which means that no matter what the cause, the result would never arise. Both of these arguments prove that results are dependent phenomena that rely on causes and conditions in order to arise. The reasoning based on everything. The fourth reasoning looks at the relationship between cause and effect. It is known as the refutation of production from the four alternatives. These four are: 1 cause producing multiple results. Second is one cause producing one result. 3 is multiple causes producing multiple results. And 4 is multiple causes producing one result. If the relationship of cause and its result is taken to exist inherently, both sides of the relationship would have to exhibit the same nature. It's impossible for something which is inherently unitary to transform into something that is inherently plural, as these two properties are mutually exclusive. Therefore, one cause would have to produce one result, and multiple causes would have to produce multiple results. This leaves us with only two alternatives, neither of which is tenable. For a single cause to inherently give rise to a single result, both the cause and the result need to also inherently exist. As this has already been proven to be impossible, we cannot establish a case where one cause gives rise to one result. If we can't establish one, then we can't establish many. Therefore, the third alternative of many causes producing many results is not possible. Reasoning based on interdependence. The fifth reasoning is considered the king of reasonings, proving that all dependent phenomena lack inherent existence due to the very fact that they are dependent arisings. In the root of the middle way, Nagarjuna writes, that which is dependent origination is explained to be emptiness. That being a dependent designation is itself the middle way. In the first two lines, Nagarjuna is equating all dependent arisings to objects which possess the property of self-emptiness. This means that wherever you find a dependent arising, you will also find it is empty of inherent existence. From the perspective of the three natures, we could say that all dependent natures are empty of their imputed natures. Nagarjuna continues by stating that the imputations of dependent origination and emptiness of self are both dependent designations. For something to be considered dependent, it must be self-empty. For it to be considered self-empty, it must be dependent. This illustrates the very nature of how the middle way view understands self-emptiness to be the balance between eternalism and nihilism. He goes on to say, there does not exist anything that is not dependently arisen. Therefore, there does not exist anything that is not empty. To understand this verse, we must remember the perspective from which we are speaking. Dependently arisen phenomena appear to the mind of a dualistic consciousness. They do not appear to the meditative mind that abides in a non-dualistic awareness of suchness. Therefore, this verse is referring to the reality of a dualistic mind. For such a mind, there are no entities which are not dependently arisen, and therefore there is nothing that is not empty of an inherently existent nature.
Okay, thank you. So tell me, what do you feel?
Lost.
Lost? Okay, you feel lost. How much percentage you lost? Huh?
Totally lost.
Totally lost. Okay. Anybody have different feeling? Tell me. What about you?
Not totally lost.
How many percentage you lost?
5.
5% is lost only. Okay. So because you read the more traditional ones, this one is more not 100% traditional. There is a try to give commentary. Which means I try to write, I try to talk, and then this person whoever helping me, we get back and forth, like that. So I cannot talk to you now. Once, if you pick a one inside, so, oh, what does mean this? I can't answer you because it's too hard. But when I write it, I try to soften, I try to loosen, I try to use the modalize, and I use in carb, not instead water pitcher or pillow or something. This one try. It's not 100%, traditional. Try to loosen. But how many people lost 100%? You lost 100%. You lost 100%, really? You?
I was really delighted that I understood most of it. And I want to go home and read it again.
Yes, you read, you just listen or you just read by yourself and you think and read again. It's very different. You can do that. So that's why I let you read everybody. I can't read that fast. I can't. So, yeah, if I read it, you lost even more.
I found it very powerful that allness in everything is all there is, and that nothing causes anything.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the elemental basis of that whole piece. Was just, we have this mental habit to separate things, but it's illusory.
Yeah.
Everything is interconnected all the time, through all time and space. So allness in everything is the fundamental truth.
Yes. Okay, so now we established some base. So now I'm trying to we try to little commentary on the Heart Sutra. So in my text said so that's his Sanskrit name, and then Vokata Chumdan the Mahirab di Parab. So this is basically name is Heart Sutra. So what do anybody have translation? English? Heart Sutra?
The regular words? Yeah.
Huh? Not in here. Huh?
That is Tibetan and English to the
But
commentary.
in here, there's no Heart Sutra
Oh, the
itself.
Heart Sutra. Yeah, thus I have heard.
Huh?
We have the translation.
What you said from the beginning?
Thus I have heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At the time the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination.
Did you say when I hear this? Did you say here?
I don't have the part about the hearing.
Huh?
No, it starts after that.
That's thus I have heard.
Thus I have heard.
Oh, that's I heard. Who heard that?
I can read the Tibetan.
Who heard? Anybody can tell me? Buddha talking, this talking, who heard that?
Is it
Huh?
Khentrul?
No.
It's a assembly of bodhisattvas in the noble Arya Sangha.
Yeah, but I think this is more referred to Vajrapani. Okay? So because Vajrapani, he composed this.
This one, the praise.
Right? Who is talking? Who is talking is Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But do they know everything? Maybe Avalokiteshvara, yes, but Shariputra not.
No.
They say in Shariputra, a power of Buddha, and then through the power of Buddha, Shariputra can have these very good questions. So then Bodhisattva, the Avalokiteshvara can answer. But who? That is not writing, talking. So then finally who compressed this together is, according to Dharanatha said, Vajrapani, isn't it? Did you say you have commentary? Yeah, I think he said it. We'll find later. Okay?
He does say that.
Yeah. Yes, he says that, which I think is different.
Okay. So we have to understand Gelong Gendin Chimbodang means the sanghas, normal sanghas, they are human sangha. When we say bodhisattvas, are they human or not human?
They're not.
They're not human, okay? When we say Avalokiteshvara, such and such, it's not human beings we're talking about. Dicep chom dan di zamor na wa yipsha yi chuji nam dang ji tang yin zan la nyum ba yukso. So means what's that? The Buddha meditated was read
At
down.
the time the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination.
Illumination, yes. Okay, illumination means talking about body, Buddha nature. Not only emptiness, not only self-empty. We're talking about, luminosity. And Buddha, there's no such thing. According to Mahayana teaching, Vajrayana teaching, or Buddha, there's no such thing. Oh, he's samadhi, or he's not no samadhi. They don't have that. But a common Buddhism, the fundamental Buddhism point of view, Buddha is a human only, and he has a meditation time, not meditation time, and so for us, for like Mahayana, Vajrayana point of view, Buddha is omnipresent. All the time, he knows everything, all the time. You don't need to think about it. But according to this, the common Buddhism point of view, Buddha need to think. They said 3 times, every day Buddha 3 times thinking what sentient being is doing. And where is need help, and so far. So you have to distinguish, these different point of views. Now, Tizep Shanchu se wasan wachimbo phawashan is the wamshuk. Hirab gi pharo to shama zammo shupa nyala number ta jang phor ngawang jingi number tao. So now, okay, read that, the next one.
And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound perfection of wisdom, saw in this way, he saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature.
Okay. So, I'm going a simple way, okay? So, this, you have the complicated, the traditional text sometimes complicate, sometimes complicate. Too many words and too many Tiskin words, you know. So that's why we say modernize. Dharma need modernize? Yes. The answer is yes. Okay? But if you modernize too far, then you go watered down. You have to make differences what modernize and what is not watered down, you know. So, because that time people how use the language, if we try to understand now, it is difficult. That's why. But how we use the language now, you can explain Dharma that way. So, when we say you know, bodhisattva, mahasarva. What is the difference is mahasarva and bodhisattva?
The great, higher level bodhisattva.
Yes. Yes, the higher level. Okay? So bodhisattva, if you are bodhisattva, you don't think only one. Okay, bodhisattva, you have to think of many levels. So the lowest bodhisattva, we can have hope. Huh?
Yeah.
Do you know why we can have hope? Because you don't have to have incredible realizations to be bodhisattva, to be lower bodhisattva. You don't have, you don't need incredible CDs, or you don't have to perform miracles. You just have this inspiration and determination of this attitude to I want to liberate sentient beings. That's I wanted. That's I really wanted. Huh? As long as you have that attitude, you already bodhisattva. You are entering the bodhisattva path already. I'm not talking about we generate in that try. I'm not talking about you are naturally, that's habit in your mind. Number one priority, you want to liberate sentient beings. Doesn't matter how long take, whatever, forever, whatever. You just want that. And this becomes attitude, then you already bodhisattva. But you are not bodhisattva, mahasarva yet. Okay? Because you could lose that one. Huh? Some bodhisattva, enter and then they lost again. They have that. Yeah. So the lower bodhisattva means the danger is to lose bodhicitta. Okay?
While practicing the profound perfection of wisdom, saw in this way.
Huh?
Next.
Yeah. The perfection of wisdom. Shupanilla number tajang. Pong number. Read that one. That's just
While practicing the profound perfection of wisdom, saw in this way, he saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature.
Yeah, empty of nature. When we say empty of nature, then you have to think about it. Yesterday we talked about three different emptiness, remember? So, we said one is emptiness of nothingness, emptiness exists, and empty nature, remember? So the empty nature means Buddha nature. Buddha nature we can say empty nature. There's very big confusion normal people have. Because one way you go to extreme, so you thinking is emptiness. We're not talking about emptiness, then you're not thinking is nothingness. You're thinking something else. For any cases, that's one confusion everybody has. So not thinking like that. Usually, 99% of the time, you should think when we say emptiness, you can think is nothingness. Nothingness of other or nothingness itself, either way you have to think that. That's like base, fundamental. And then you not misunderstand. But the exceptional time, then we say empty nature, we call rangent. So that is thinking about empty other, empty of other. So why? Everything is empty of other, you know. This mandala is not empty of book, and this flower is empty of mandala. You know, everything is each other, empty other. That's why maybe you can take that reason, say, oh, why call empty nature? But if we say book, that's easy to understand. That's why also you can say empty nature. But if you say, oh, book is not exist, what are you talking about? Book is there, you hold it and we read it, you know. So that's not easy to understand. So that's why we can make different names. So that's why we say yo pistonit, me pistonit. So if somebody think this is a cat, dog, that is empty of nothingness, you know. There is no dog on here, impossible. But if we think this is a book, you can say empty of existence, because exist in relative level, but is empty inherently. So you can think that way. But then Buddha nature include everything empty of others. That is nature. Very easy to understand. Even if 2 years old child say, "Charles, this is not book. Books, this is flower, not book." Okay, yes, I agree. But then this same thing come to the Buddha nature, then people confused. The same thing where you come to the Buddha nature, confused people. Why? Because, oh, Buddha nature is something is not we experience every day. You know, to understand the Buddha nature is empty of other, is relating, you understand empty of self-empty, or the samsara universe is self-empty, to rely on that. That's why difficult to understand or normal. But just intellectually we explain this way, it shouldn't be that hard. To have a realization of that is, yes, hard, but to intellectually to understand this, it shouldn't be too hard, because it's just same as a flower empty of the book. So that's why. Five skandhas. Yeah. So now then the Shariputra. Okay, read that one.
Then through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokitesvara, the bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound perfection of wisdom?
Yes. So that's easy, yeah? You don't need to explain, right? Understand? That's straightforward, right? Okay. And then answer?
Addressed in this way, noble Avalokitesvara, the bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound perfection of wisdom should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form.
Yes, form no teta kanya rangin jiston number tao. Rangin jiston. Rangin jiston means empty of nature means another meaning. It's just naturally like that. Is nobody have to make that. Nobody have to make happen to that. You don't need anything to do. This is the truth or nature, meaning like that. So, so the first one, we say the so the first verse is like like bodhisattva. He looked that way, and the second one, Shariputra asked bodhisattva, and then bodhisattva replied the same thing what he taught. Isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the first one, the bodhisattva Mahasarva, Avalokiteshvara, that one, Taranatha said, this is first explanation. He interpreted this is like a first words from the sutra, the Heart Sutra to explain in the Janton. So when you're talking about Janton, when people say we explain in Janton, means you have to think about explaining Buddha nature. Because here directly saying empty, not saying Buddha nature. But using a nature, that means explain Buddha nature. The second one is second word explaining Buddha nature. That's he just categorized. Okay. Then the third, that one. Yeah, the form is empty, that one, right?
Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness.
Okay. This one is the, how is that? Need a lot of explanation. So this one say, form is empty. Emptiness form. This one, every school should have a different explanation. The best way we compare two commentaries, like three commentaries, if we compare, if we have a lot of time, is that better. But you don't really need. When we say Zuk Tong Pao, the form is empty. That time, let's think about Rang Tong Pa. If the Rang Tong Pa inside have, let's say, Gelugpa and Nyangmapa, so in Gelugpa point of view, you say, these forms or these forms is not empty but inherently empty. Is not empty means you can see everything, you can touch, but inherently empty means if you analyze, you cannot find. The meaning is that. And Nyangmapa said, no, you can't say that. You just have to say it is empty. You don't say inherently empty. You just say form is empty. You don't need search inherently empty. You something inherent or not inherent. You don't have to say that. Because it's so obvious. And then the Gelugpa say, oh, you have to say this. If you say form is empty, then also karma is empty, merit empty, Buddha empty, all of them empty. So means don't have all of them. So then you are become nihilism. That's Gelugpa answer. So Nyangmapa said, no. You don't worry about that because, you say empty and then You still see, you still touch, you have no problem. So that then cannot become a nihilism, no possible. You don't worry about it. You something worry, you don't need worry. Okay? Not only Nyongma, but Nyongma, Kargitpa, like, or the other ones say that way.
Illusory.
Huh?
Is it the illusory?
No, they just say, you need negating the form. You don't need negating something found inherent or something. You leave the form and you don't need to do that. That's they say, the arguments. Okay? So to me is doesn't matter. The same purpose, because Gelugpa using as inherent and they're not saying the form. So, but the meaning is the purpose is you're not grasping, you're not clinging on. That is the purpose. The Nyongma say, oh, you don't worry, you don't do that. Nyongma saying even like Mapam and they saying when you not negating form and you just find something inherent, something more than form, and that is you not negating yak, and instead you negate you negating cow doesn't mean negate yak. So not good enough. You just have to negate this the form itself. That's they say, the arguments. Okay. So anyway, and then that's the big problem. Let's say empty is a form. How do you explain that? Anybody familiar with Gelug or Nyama? Can you remember what is meaning? Emptiness is a form. What I mean? Okay. So the Gelugpa way, like emptiness is a form, because the form and emptiness, the both is on the form, because you inherently not existent is emptiness, and if you not say inherently, then is forms there. So form and inherently not exist both on the form. Probably they explain that. And the Nyoma Bave, Nyoma Ban Kajipate say the nirvana and the samsara is the same, only different realization. Same nature, have different realization. If you don't realize, then is a form. If you realize, then is emptiness. Same base. Okay? So now, Taranatha, he challenged that. He challenging them. What is his challenging is, he said, you can think many ways. When we say form is empty, you can, he said Buddha have many ways of meaning. And that in normal way, you use base is the form itself. I say, remember before I said, we need grand path result, grand means base. So the base, you have the ultimate base as Buddha nature, but temporary base, you can use anything. So that's why he said, if you use base as a form itself, and then he said, form itself is, of course, self-empty. That's why you use a base is form itself, and then form is empty itself. And then emptiness form, what does it mean? Reality, there is no form ever, never had, only emptiness. Only this nature emptiness. Remember the Buddha nature. Only that is truly exist. But when we say form is emptiness, doesn't matter for you is you experiencing only form, but actually there is no form, it's only emptiness. That best. That's they say, that Tarana said. So what does it mean? For instance, somebody have, what do you call it? His eyes, everything become yellow, and you see everything yellow.
Oh, jaundice.
Huh?
Jaundice.
Jaundice. Okay, some jaundice. Then the white conch, you see it only yellow. But you can say, oh, what you say in yellow is a conch. Because the yellow is not there. Never there. But it is a conch. Still you have to say this person, am I seeing the conch? Yes, you see the conch. Conch is always white, never yellow. So he explained that way. Okay? So that's one way explain, he said. The other way explain, it's very easy, the normal way. Form is empty. Form is, of course, empty, is illusion, never exist, empty itself. Then emptiness is form. That's one. Emptiness means Buddha nature. The nature emptiness. Form, yes, of course, form, because Nabatamchetpa. So the Buddha nature is the quality of everything, include, all three realms, everything. So why not? It's not form. It's not form, it's sound, it's smell, everything. Tontam Yozuk, we call Tontam Yozuk. Okay? Tontam Yozuk. Tontam Yozuk means the ultimate form is not samsaric form. Not the relative form, not the illusional form. It is the ultimate form. So therefore, so therefore, in that point of view, is very easy. Emptiness, the real emptiness, and this form, each other. They are not other than that. Because non-contradiction. The Buddha nature, the ultimate emptiness is non-contradiction. You can say empty form. That's why we call empty form. In general, empty and form are contradiction. But in Buddha nature level, empty and form non-contradiction. So this is the third way of explanation of the Janton. So then after that, we'll say, Sharibu.
In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics.
Did say Mashkipa manga never born?
There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity.
Yes.
There is no decrease and no increase.
So this one is shown more clear the Buddha nature, the gentle. Because Sanyid Mepa means no characteristics, means our conceptual characteristics, you cannot measure them. You know, you cannot identify them. Mahkiba, never born, never born. Never born means is not nothingness, okay? Never need born. Born means always before you not exist, now you exist, right? That's born. So it's not that. And no cessation. What do you say?
No cessation.
No cessation.
Stop.
Yeah. Tramamepa. The next one.
There is no impurity and no purity.
Yes. So always Tramamepa. Tramatang Tramamepa. No dirtiness there. Never, you don't need even free from the, what's it called?
You don't need to purify.
Yes,
Nothing
you don't
to
need purify. Trawamepa, Kawamepa. Yeah. So this isn't the sense like showing Buddha nature, right? This all positive world explanation, not the samsaric characteristic, but still characteristics explaining. It's not like empty, empty, empty. So this showing is permanent, eternal, like that way. And the next one.
There is no decrease and no increase.
That's him, the next one.
Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas.
Yeah, you have to think of this one negating all samsaric qualities. The Bhagavan not negating, telling all the with the natural qualities. Here not negating all samsaric qualities. Okay, the next one.
No I element up to no mind element, no element of dharmas, no mind consciousness element, no ignorance, no cessation of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no cessation of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment.
Okay. Before we talking about the base, now we talking about the path. You know, you are free from the 12 links of origination, and distance is a path usually, remember? But when you're talking about Buddha nature, you don't need path. You know? Path is something, you are not Buddha nature yet. You reach the Buddha nature itself, there is no path. That's why. Okay.
No attainment and no non-attainment.
Yeah. And then after that?
Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of the perfection of wisdom.
Yeah. So, why all the Buddhas attain Buddhahood? because of they understood this. You know, they understood the Buddha nature. You already have. You don't need to cultivate anything. So in that case, you say, okay, what is Baba? What about we taking part and 3 countless aeons, blah 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 blah. Think about you have an army. Anything, any solutions you had in the dream to wake up. Then after wake up, there's no real, or let's say, you have a nightmare. And the nightmare, you are chasing by bears, tigers, whatever. And finally, you did something. You maybe catch the tiger's ears and then you, what do you call it? You batted the tiger's eyes ball. So then you wake up. You run in miles and miles when you know, like when you're doing this time, you run in miles and the thorns and your body is, you know, how to say, cut up everything. But now you wake up, you are just incredible comfortable on the bed. All body is nothing, no cuts, nothing. And the tiger's eyes ball not in your mouth. Or illusion. But the illusion itself help you to wake up. Right? It's like that. You just have to understand that. That's all. But now you think about that, or is it not true? But even if it's not true, wake me up. That's good. No matter how much we do everything, and when we reach Buddhahood, then it's like that. Okay, all we did, everything is illusion, but it's okay. This illusion is good illusion. It helps me, you know, realize my own true nature. Okay.
Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear.
Yeah.
They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana.
Okay. So the next.
All the Buddhas of the 3 times, by means of the perfection of wisdom, fully awakened to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment.
Okay, that's we already said, huh?
Yeah. Therefore, the great mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception.
Okay. Okay. So the mantra means the essence, right? The essence, the language, means, the short sentence. Why is the essence? Because in sentence wise is short, condensed meaning, and originally used by Buddha how he made the sentence. And the language used as a Lagzher Girkan. Lagzher Girkan means Sanskrit. But Sanskrit means, in India have many languages that time. But languages, there's a superior language and inferior language, like the superior language means Lagzher, means in Sanskrit we call Lagzher Girkan. Lag means, how to say, the perfection or excellence.
Sanskrit means perfect.
Yeah. So perfect, yeah. The perfect you use in the perfect language, and you use the contents, the meaning. And the use by Buddha, how he used the way. So that's why it's a mantra. That's why it's a bliss. So that's why realization sentence, incomparable sentence, I don't know how to say, equanimity, merzen bina, so it is the talking, the truth, not the that's why Hirabji Parotshimba, the perfection of wisdom. Tatum Gadingadi Parangadi Para Sangadi Bodhi Soha Harivu Shanchipsa was much more Washington. Hirabji Parotshimba Zamola Habrashao. Okay, the next.
The perfection of wisdom mantra is said in this way: Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhi Soha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom.
Okay. The next.
Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, O son of noble family, thus it is. O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice.
So that is Sutra 4, yeah? You don't need explanation, right? Huh? Yeah, I don't think so, you need explanation. Okay, finish it up.
When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, the whole assembly, and the world with its gods, humans, Asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One.
Okay, so any questions?
I recite a lot of mantras, but I never recite this Om Gate Gate Pa Gate Pa.
Yeah.
So when should I be reciting that mantra?
Whenever you can.
Every day.
Huh?
Every day.
Yeah, every day. There is no maximum mantra. Mantra, there's no restriction on maximum. Everybody question, all the time, when is should do the mantra, how many should do it. No restriction of maximum. If you can replace your adult speech, gossip, all of them, if it's meant to be replaced by mantras.
That'll take a long time.
If you can't, then you just do whatever you can, as much as you can. Yeah. And some Muslim told that Tibetan person say, your religion is so bad. Your religion is so bad because when we practice religion, we do shower and clean ourselves and wash teeth and then wash my feet and everything. Then we go inside temple and wearing new clothes, and then we pray. You guys just eating, shitting all the time, prayer. Oh, terrible. Yes. So Buddhist practice, you can eat and shit in any time. Because the practice is familiarization, remember? So familiarization, as many as you did, then more familiarization. Yeah.
So I'm a little stuck on, at the very beginning, while practicing the profound perfection of wisdom saw in this way, he saw the five skandhas to be, the English translation is empty of nature.
Yes.
And I got a little lost when you were talking about the Zhentong view of that. It seemed like you were saying that the words, not the English words, but the Tibetan or the Hindi can be interpreted as Buddha nature.
Yeah.
Is that so? That means that the English translation "empty of nature" would not be a very good translation, because I have a hard time seeing "empty of nature" as meaning Buddha nature. Whereas for the Remkong view, I see that, right? It's empty
Yes.
of an impossible way of
Yes.
existing. It's empty of inherent nature. It's only a dependent origination.
Yes. But I think why I say that, because is this, I referred yesterday, I explained, remember, empty of nothingness, empty of existence, maybe not correct language, but the nature empty, nature empty, empty nature, or that one. So in Tibetan we call it mepi tong anyetang, yopi tong, yopi tong anyetang, ramjin tong anyehina. Ramjin means nature. Nature means not need to change anything. So that's always we refer to Buddha nature. Okay? So if something is nature, you don't need to change nothing, is Buddha nature. So that's why I call empty nature or Buddha nature, either way, same meaning. Why different names? Because when we say Buddha nature, we talking about the Buddha quality. That's aspect. When we say empty nature, we talking about empty of other, empty of samsara, but still is nature. So that's why. So Taranatha even challenging the Nartobas, and here when we say form is empty, empty is form, he said Janton way to explain this is the excellent, but if the Nartomba way is, you cannot explain way that way, he said. Why? Before I just try to explain how Gelugpa explain different way, Nyamabas how different explain way, but I didn't say Taranatha is challenging. But the Taranatha is challenging, what he's saying is, Nartomba empty means ultimate truth. Emptiness means always the ultimate truth. There is no other meaning for them, according to them. That's why he said, you cannot say form is empty. You cannot say form is empty. If you say that, then form is ultimate truth. That's he saying. Emptiness form also you cannot say, because for them is emptiness is always ultimate truth. So that's why you cannot refer to the form. You cannot do Janton way. If you do Janton, if you say then, the emptiness is not empty. Emptiness is nothing, not nothingness. It is something. They usually say this. Remember I said yesterday. And then, then you are not Ranton anymore. You are not Rantonba anymore. You just claim you are Ranton, but you are becoming Jantonba. But if you want to be Rantonba at the same time, you cannot say Form is empty, empty is form. That's that is given challenge. Is make sense?
No, I don't understand.
Yes, because remember the other day and yesterday I explained. If for Jantongpa, empty means two meanings. Empty itself, empty of other, and also empty of other is like relative things empty each other, and this. That's why nothing empty, empty of nothingness, empty of existence, and then empty of nature. Three meanings. But Rangtongpa have only one meaning. Emptiness is the ultimate truth.
You just said empty of nature as the Zhentongpa.
Yeah. That means Buddha nature.
To build on what Rinpoche is saying, Stephen, with the line that you're talking about, there's what they're not just saying there also is that it's only because Avalokiteshvara is in abiding in suchness, in Buddha nature, that he can see that form is empty. Because Buddha nature is empty of other. So that's like the flip side of what Rinpoche is saying.
Okay, what problem you have?
I have a problem with the English and the exact phrase empty of nature.
So that's one translation. It's translated differently in the book. So
Yeah.
we don't have to completely be caught of the translation of the word nature. Because the commentary is translated that what Tim was pointing out is the commentary refers back to that we have to see the base that Rinpoche is explaining as Buddha nature. The base is because the Buddha is in samadhi, so the Buddha is in Buddha nature, and Avalokiteshvara is resting his mind in equipoise and samadhi in the Buddha nature, and from this base can therefore see the emptiness. And in this translation, it's the emptiness of the five aggregates of inherent existence, because they're in the base of Buddha nature. So so it's explaining the Jinpongvi this way. So they didn't translate the word exactly the same.
But that sounds like the Rentong view.
It's inherent of everything other than itself. Maybe if I give you this at lunchtime, it might help too. The first.
Yes. My bad. Don't rely on my bad translation. Rely on good translations. You can think about what I'm saying, but the word I'm using, you can maybe find better way.
Tarnath is basically saying that you can understand that it's pointing to the Zhentong view of emptiness because of the line in the beginning where it talks about the Blessed One entering samadhi. And the Buddha is never not in samadhi. The Buddha is always resting in samadhi in Buddha nature. And Avalokiteshvara is also in this meditative equipoise of Buddha nature. So their base to have this realization that is primordial awareness is the Buddha nature. And from this, they see the emptiness. They see the emptiness of all the aggregates of the skandhas. But there's Buddha nature there, right? Because they're seeing the aggregates are empty. Everything else is empty. All there is the Buddha nature. Does this kind of make sense?
You can read the book and then we can discuss later. So now we can finish.
Okay. Dedication?
Yeah.
By all these virtuous deeds of accumulated merit, may all beings be rescued from the ocean of samsara, where the tide of aging, sickness, and death is violently active. May this merit help all beings attain Buddhahood and be victorious over all the enemies of deceptive obscurations. By the goodness of what I have just done, may all beings complete the accumulation of merit and wisdom and gain the 2 sacred bodies. In future lives, may I never be separated from my glorious Lama. May I never be separated from the joy of practicing the precious Dharma. May I accomplish all the enlightened Rimé levels and paths and attain the Buddhahood of Vajradhara. As long as space endures, as long as beings exist, may I remain and expel their sorrows until they reach Buddhahood. May the precious view of the emptiness of interdependence arise, which has not yet arisen, and may that which has already arisen not degenerate, may it increase. May the precious Dharma be respected and remain in this world, the only medicine and cure for suffering. The source of all happiness is the sacred Dharma. By the power of the 3 bodies of the Buddhas, the immutable truth of the Dharma, and by the power of the inseparable union of the Sangha, may all our wishes be fulfilled. Through the ultimate view of the sutras, the great Madhyamika of the Zen led away, and the ultimate view of the Tantras, the indestructible 6 yogas of Kalachakra Tantra, may the glorious Jonang tradition flourish. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and joy. Glorious Tenzin Gyatso Shenreshi, please remain until samsara ends. Shar Khentrul Lodrö, kind of love and compassion, peaceful and gentle in nature, fields and manifold appearances, glorious and powerful, great mind of limitless depth, ocean-like treasury, sublime counsel, guiding all beings in a manner suiting their needs. Unification of the 3 trainings, faith, diligence, and concentration, priceless vitality, courageously manifesting the confidence of wisdom and compassion, creator of peace and harmony, please remain upon your Vajra throne. May your enlightened activities be accomplished in accordance with your greatest